You're listening to The Harmony of We, a space for remembering what we already are together. I'm Greg Kuiper, counselor, author, and fellow traveler in this ongoing field of being human. This podcast isn't about fixing. It's not about getting relationships right. It's about coming into resonance with yourself, with each other, and with the presence that lives in between. This is where the book relationship, The Harmony of We, continues in breath, in story, and in shared awareness. Hello. I'm so glad you're here with me here today. Over the last several episodes, we've been following the subtle movements that shape connection. We began by exploring the small moments where two people miss each other. And by miss, I mean don't just quite click. The moments that don't look significant from the outside, but quietly change the space between us. Then we explored repair, what it means to come back after a missed moment, and what makes that return so difficult sometimes. In the last episode, we followed Ethan and Maya through something many of us know well, a moment where one person returned, but the repair didn't immediately land. The hurt was deeper than the moment itself. The conversation opened up something, but it didn't resolve it. And that's where I want to begin today. Because often what matters most in relationship isn't what happens during the breakthrough moment. It's what happens afterward, when there is no breakthrough, when there is no immediate relief, when things still feel uncertain. What do we do then? Most of us have been taught to think of connection as something that happens when things feel good, when we're understood and we're aligned, when we're close. But some of the deepest moments of connection don't happen when things feel easy. They happen when things feel difficult, when someone tells us something we'd rather not hear, when disappointment enters the room or hurt becomes visible, when the urge to pull away appears, because that's often the moment where a relationship reveals itself, not through perfection, but through presence. So let's go back to our couple. It's Saturday morning. A few days have passed since the conversation they had in the car. Nothing dramatic has happened since then. No major conflict, no emotional breakthrough. And there hasn't been any long heart-to-heart that suddenly changed everything. Just life, the ordinary rhythm of a shared weekend. Ethan is sitting on the back patio with a cup of coffee. The early morning air is cool. The neighborhood is quiet. One of those peaceful times when you can notice birds moving between the trees. The world feels slower than usual. Inside the house, Maya is moving through the kitchen. He can hear dishes being put away, a cabinet opening, water running, small, ordinary sounds. And yet, something still feels unfinished for him. Nothing broken or even tense, just unfinished. A few minutes later, Maya steps outside carrying her own coffee. She sits in the chair beside him. For a while, neither of them speaks. And for Ethan, this is where the challenge begins, because silence used to mean something very specific to him. It meant something was wrong. It meant distance, and that he should either fix the situation or avoid it. But lately, he's beginning to notice something. Silence isn't always disconnection. Sometimes silence is simply where people are. Still, the discomfort is there. He can feel it. the urge to make the moment better, the urge to ask, are we okay? The urge to get reassurance. Instead, he waits. This is something we rarely talk about, the discomfort of staying. Not staying in unhealthy situations or tolerating mistreatment, but staying emotionally present when uncertainty exists. Because uncertainty is difficult for our nervous system. We want closure, we want resolution, we want to know where we stand. And when we don't, the mind often rushes in to fill the space. Ethan notices this happening. Part of him is already creating stories. Is she still upset? Maybe nothing has changed. Maybe this conversation in the car didn't matter. And then another awareness arises for him. He doesn't actually know. He's reacting to uncertainty, not reality. And for perhaps the first time in a long while, he allows himself to simply stay there without needing the answer immediately. Eventually, Maya breaks the silence. You've seemed different this week. Ethan looks over. There's curiosity in her voice. He doesn't hear accusation or suspicion, just curiosity. He smiles slightly. I think I've been paying attention. Maya laughs softly. That's probably true. And then another pause settles between them. The kind of pause that would have felt uncomfortable before, but doesn't now, because something is changing internally for both of them. After a moment, Maya speaks again. You know, she looks down into her coffee. I wasn't sure what to do with that conversation the other night. Ethan feels the vulnerability in her words immediately, not because she's saying something dramatic, but because she's letting him see something real. He waits. I think part of me wanted to believe it. She smiles faintly. And part of me didn't know if I could. The old Ethan would have responded immediately. He would have reassured, gone into explaining and promising. But something has shifted. Instead of moving toward fixing, he moves toward understanding. That makes sense. And he means it. Because now he can see the emotional reality she's describing. Trust is not built because one conversation goes well. It grows because many moments begin to tell a different story. And this may be one of the most important things we learn in a relationship. Presence cannot be proven. It can only be experienced. You cannot convince someone you're here. You cannot argue them into trust. You cannot explain your way into safety, and you can only continue showing up again and again and again. And over time, the nervous system begins to believe what the words alone never could. You may know this feeling. Perhaps you've been the person trying to prove yourself, trying to explain your intentions, trying to get someone to understand that you've changed. And perhaps you've discovered how frustrating that can feel, because the more we try to convince, the further away connection often moves. Real trust grows differently, slowly and quietly, through accumulated experience. through enough moments where someone remains present that eventually the body begins to relax. The two of them sat together for another 20 minutes, talking occasionally, falling silent again, watching the morning unfold. Nothing extraordinary happens. There is no revelation, no dramatic repair, and yet something important occurs. Neither person leaves emotionally. Neither rushes toward resolution, and neither retreats into protection. They simply remain together inside an unfinished moment. And sometimes that is where healing begins. Many of us imagine healing as a breakthrough, a realization, maybe a conversation, a moment where everything suddenly makes sense. But more often, healing looks like this: two people sitting together, not fully resolved, not perfectly connected, not certain where everything is going, and choosing to remain present anyway. Because relationship is not built in the extraordinary moments, it's built in the ordinary ones: the Saturday mornings, the quiet conversations, the unfinished spaces, the moments where it would be easier to leave emotionally, and we don't. Being comfortable in the uncertainty. And that is trust. That is vulnerability. That is safety in the moment. So maybe this week, you notice what happens inside you when uncertainty is there, when a conversation remains unfinished, when someone doesn't immediately reassure you, when connection feels incomplete. Can you stay just a little longer? Not forcing or fixing, not withdrawing, simply staying present long enough to see what emerges. Because sometimes the deepest act of love is not solving the moment, it's remaining inside it long enough for something real to unfold. Healing begins in the space between us. May you walk in the harmony of we.